probably. I liked it. So what was it that I liked so much? Tell me the outside concentration of sodium again. Hurry up. 150. Inside.
15.
15. And I promise you everything I'm asking you is on the exam. Everything. I am not wasting your time. We might be having fun. I certainly am. I love this stuff. But it's relevant to you too. So when you open a voltage-gated sodium channel, you got concentrations of 150 outside and 15 inside. What's sodium going to do? Enough, Gene, come on.
It's gonna go in.
It's going to go down its concentration gradient. It's obvious. Sodium is what? It's Dylan, right? Sodium is what? Positive, negative charge? What is it? Oh, it's positive. It's positive. So is the interior going to be more positive, more negative? What's it sitting at? Is the inside of the membrane at rest of all living cells? All living cells. Inside is what? Relative to outside?
Negative.
Negative. Now, if you allow sodium in, it's becoming more positive. And what's the word that describes that? Is that hyperpolarization or is that depolarization? Darn right it's depolarization. And I tell you, this is the key to so much. You're going to get it. You're going to get it, and you're going to like it. I promise. All right, so it's depolarizing. That makes sense. But then I close those channels for step 4. Those channels are closed. They actually have 2 gates on. The other voltage-gated channels don't have 2 gates. Like voltage-gated potassium channels, it only has 1 gate. But I do want you to know that the sodium channel has 2 gates. It's in your book, and it's worth knowing. Okay. Now for step 4, the repolarization phase, for it to make sense to you, what you're memorizing here, is what you're opening up. You close the inactivation gates, so voltage-gated sodium channels are closed. But now you're opening voltage-gated potassium channels. Give me numbers. What's potassium's concentration outside the cell? 5. Thank you, Mike. What about inside the cell? And you know we're using, this is the only one we have to know a range for because it does vary. When I make calculations though, when I do the calculations on it, a lot of times you don't have to. But when I do it, a lot of times I use 100. I don't use 150 inside, I use 100, but your book has 150. That's a range. It goes 100 to 150. Depends on the text, but it also depends on the reality. Potassium inside really does vary more than the others. All right, so what's potassium going to do? What's the concentration gradient? Mike, you said it's 5 outside, so it's 100 to 150 inside. It's going to flow out. And what's the charge on it? Positive. That's right. Now, there's something I didn't tell you, and that is that right in this part right here, and actually it starts up in here, but it's absolutely essential. I have one of your diagrams. May I go back to that? Let me just go to one of your diagrams I've got, and it's not that one. It's not that one, but you see they calling them different things. Refractory period here. You see rising phase. There are a couple of ways to name this. This is the action potential. There's only one way it works. You can name it in these various ways that I've got for you. I pulled them off the internet, different sources, and I see them equally frequently in different sources. So don't you worry about it. Believe me, you'll be ready for an MCAT or whatever else, presuming that the people who write the questions do it correctly. I did notice that one of the students who was studying for an MCAT came up to me on Friday, and he shows me a multiple choice, or actually it came out to, maybe it was Wednesday, showed me a multiple choice. And the person writing for the Kaplan course, the bio part was wrong. So it was a question, multiple choice question. It wasn't one of you guys, right? It was, the correct answer in the multiple choice was supposed to be cortisol releasing hormone. There ain't no thing. There ain't no cortisol releasing hormone. The person who wrote that question should have been fired. Don't study for a test. There's a corticotropin releasing hormone, and it sure as heck doesn't directly stimulate cortisol. It does it indirectly. You use releasing hormones specifically for the hormones that come from the hypothalamus and control the anterior pituitary. You never use that word, releasing, for anterior pituitary hormones. But yet, this individual did. And by the way, the one that stimulates the release of cortisol from the adrenal cortex is adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. That is stimulated by corticotropin releasing hormone. Indeed, ACTH does stimulate cortisol. Don't study for a test. Get some half-qualified PhD writing questions for the Kaplan. You know? I give you various representations for you to solidify the understanding of a reality. Now, another representation here. I have the importance, I like this one very much. It illustrates the importance of the sodium-potassium pumps. Because guess what? This amplitude will never change, depending on stimulus. If it's a strong stimulus, the strong stimulus is never going to alter the amplitude of the action potential. Action potentials are all or none. They don't change in amplitude. If you stimulate one, if you achieve step two, and you do reach threshold, you're going to have an action potential. It will always have that amplitude. But how do you reflect the strength of a stimulus? Man, you get several hundred action potentials in a second. That's learning. If you just have 10 action potentials in a second, that ain't squat. That's like turning on your car. And it's sitting there idling. It's doing like 1,000 RPMs or whatever. Well, that's not, man, 10 a second, that's just a neuron being alive but not doing anything. And remember, your brain's not all active at the same time. I mean really doing something, right? When you're learning something, when something clicks, that neuron fires 700 times in a second. Now, for that to be able to be achieved, how are you going to have another action potential? How are you going to have another action potential if you've already allowed sodium in and potassium to efflux, potassium out? You must run the sodium-potassium pumps. To get that sodium back out, they're running all the time. On this, for repolarization phase, they're running, and the undershoot, and after hyperpolarization, they're running, just so you can have another action potential. Now, I tell you, it's very similar to having a bunch of dominoes here. I started to say that before. Tehran, right? Tehran. Get that. Okay, Tehran over here, we are in control of the first domino. The dominoes are lined up along the whole table here. Chris down there, actually, I'm gonna describe a special domino in front of you in just a second. Well, if we want to learn something, we have to knock over that first domino. That's step two. That's step two with the EPSPs. It only happens on the very most beginning of the action potential. Because after that, there aren't any EPSPs playing a role. Down here, there are no EPSPs. And you'll understand in 2 seconds why that is. Okay. So I knock over the first domino here. It goes all the way down to the end. And you know what the last domino to open is? I said it some lectures ago. It's that voltage-gated calcium channel. It's that voltage-gated calcium channel that you see right here in the chemical synapse. That one, the last one to fall, all of those opening of voltage-gated sodium channels leads to an opening of a voltage-gated calcium channel, calcium influx, and the exocytosis of neurotransmitters. That's how it works. Did I go over all the neurotransmitters for you? Did I go over some of them? Did I go over all of them, I hope? I kind of did, right? Good, good. All right. So which ones did I say produce EPSPs? Which one? Acetylcholine, Allison. And what else, guys, up there? I heard something. What was the other one? Glutamate. I heard that over here. Who said that? Nefertiti? Yeah. Glutamate, acetylcholine is the only ones I want you to know produce EPSPs. Yes, the other ones do sometimes, but they also produce IPSPs. But I'll tell you, acetylcholine and glutamate in the brain, it's always EPSPs. Always, always, that I know of.